I'd like to welcome you all today and thank you for joining us. My name is Julia and I'm part of the GeoTime team, and I'm joined today by our guest presenter. We have Dawn Reby from Excellence in Analytics. And Dawn has a great session prepared for you all today called What Skills Do I Really Need to Know as a Law Enforcement Analyst? She's going to cover some key skills that are needed for efficiency, proficiency, and success in law enforcement analysis. Now, before I hand things over to Dawn to get started, I did want to go over some housekeeping items quickly. And if you've been to our webinars before, this might look a little bit different. But like we said, the webinar is going to be very interactive and we're looking for lots of participation and questions throughout. So you should see the chat function on your screen. As Dawn is presenting and looking for participation and questions, you're going to be able to type in the chat and share your responses. Make sure when you're doing that, you're sending your response to panelists and attendees so we can all see your responses as well. And I see the chat is working for a lot of you already, so that is great. So I wouldn't worry too much about using the Q&A box for today. We'll definitely be relying more on the chat for this webinar. At the end of the webinar, you are going to receive the recording, a survey to let us know how we did, as well as your certificate of attendance. And if you have any questions at all throughout, please don't hesitate to ask and I'll be able to help you out. And with that, I think we're ready to go. Dawn, I'm going to kick things over to you to get started.
All right, let's do this. Thank you so much, Julia. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Let's see if I can do this. Oop. All right, Julia, can you give me the thumbs up? Are you able to see the 6 skills that analysts need to know?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. All right. So like Julia said, this is a completely interactive session. I'm here to serve you in partnership with GeoTime. So that means there's going to be a few eyes on the chat over here. And so the chat over here is going to be what helps guide some of the conversation of this training. We're here for the next hour and a half to support you. And so, you know, when I was putting this together, the 6 skills that analysts need to know, I really wanted to keep in mind the new analysts, what you need to focus on, as well as the seasoned analysts, because often those seasoned analysts get caught and stuck in old ways of thinking and old patterns of thinking that are quite honestly outdated and might not be as efficient as we want them to be. So this really is to support every analyst at every level. These are the key things through my experience around the globe that really every analyst needs to be focusing on. Also, supervisors. So if you supervise a team of analysts, you want to make sure that you're focusing in on these things as well, so that you can give your analysts everything that they need to be super successful. All right. So I see Hawaii popping in here, Canada, more Canada. Hey, Crystal, nice to see you. And Bonnie from Hawaii. Good to see you guys popping on in here. So you guys ready to get started? Let's do it. Let's make it happen. And off we go. So for those of you who are like, who is this Dawn Reby? All 278 of you who are here today, and maybe a couple hundred more who might be listening to the replay, you're saying, who is Dawn Reby? So I've been in the law enforcement environment since 1998. A long time performing analytics at agencies myself. So acting as an analyst, as a creator of analytical function at particular agencies. And for the last 10 years have been partnering with government entities to travel all over, I would say the US, but recently it's the globe, to implement analytical infrastructure, proper analytical infrastructure. And so last week I was in Saudi Arabia building out their analytical capacity. A few months ago, I was in Arizona and Florida and Maryland, and Maryland was last year, but a couple of others, you know, I see you guys popping on here. I get the pleasure of meeting many analysts, many supervisors, many chiefs, and other executive staff, and really identifying the key principles, what works and what doesn't. So I'm going to share that with you today. I also wrote my first book that I'll share with you a little later on today. I'm very excited about that. It's for analysts. And I'm working on my second book for supervisors to help you build that capacity. So my goal here in life is really to transform us, to transform this industry, the people and the beautiful minds in it, into balanced, highly productive and happy professionals. And so today's session in partnership with GeoTime is going to begin that process for many of you and continue that process for many of you as well. So here we go. the 6 things, the 6 topic areas that analysts and supervisors skills that we need to know. And so this is the focus for today. As we have these conversations, plug into the chat specific questions that you have about your agency, because the answer might be different depending on the size of your agency, the build of your analytical capacity to date, whether you're a sophisticated unit or a beginning unit, and so forth. So be sure to ask many, many questions. It makes it a lot more fun, and it makes a lot more, better on your end to receive specific input relative to your specific needs. So today we're going to talk about systems management. These are the things, grab your notebooks. These are the things analysts and supervisors need to be thinking about on a regular basis. Systems management. We're going to talk a lot about critical thinking and analysis, what that actually means, what technology skills you should actually know and have in your belt, right? And what are the ones we can toss out the windows? We're going to talk about producing actionable reports and why that word actionable is so critical to proper implementation of analytical function. We're going to talk about this thing called relationship building, which is not talked about enough, but is truly your doom and gloom if you do not develop it properly in your agencies. And then, of course, public speaking. So many of you might say, why are we talking about public speaking? You will soon find out. So stick around to the end. We have some really great tools for you, not only professionally, but also personally, to get you to be able to share your content and deliver your content in a way that is extremely impactful and can support your teams. All right. So in the chat right now, I want you to scribble down, type in which one of these 6 analyst skills are you most excited to learn about. Nicole, that means you, Bonnie, Crystal, all of you, go ahead and write in the chat. Seda, Camion, let's see who else is here. Layla, I love that. Marianne, go ahead and share. What are you most looking forward to learning about? Let's see, what do we have? Relationship building, producing reports, systems management, public speaking. Yes, yes, yes. I love it. Keep it coming. Brad is chiming in. Technology skills for you. Precious says systems management and skills. Yes. All right. I like it. I love it. Here we go. I see all of your comments here. Each one of you is important here. So yes, Jamie, analysis and critical thinking. All right, beautiful. Many of you have a variety. So this is great because we're going to cover all of them today. Okay. All right, Janet, yes, I see you. And Daniela, Ada, I see you too. So here we go. So let's start with systems management. This is something, Kristen, that you all want to pay attention to, right? So Christopher, analysis and critical thinking, everyone, eyes here, systems management. This is the starting point. This is where we begin. Okay, so systems management. We want to have these 3 things in place. 1, data access. You don't know how many analysts and supervisors I've spoken to who simply don't have access to their data, or they manually enter it because it's too hard to get access to their data. So we're going to talk about that. Is that anyone here? Is that anyone here? Right. So we're going to talk about how do you access large amounts of data and put it all in one place so that you can easily analyze, right? Rather than react to data requests and so forth. We're going to talk about your master databases and how to store analytical notes, how to have easy extraction systems and so forth, ways to automate some of your statistical reporting so that you can do and perform the analytics that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. And finally, processes, right? Systems that document your processes, how to identify gaps in your systems, right? How to regularly look at them and see what's missing and how can we fill that gap? What's the solution? So if you're a starting analyst and you want to really impress your commanders, like get into the systems, know them inside and out, and be able to say, I feel 100% confident in my data. Okay. Because that's going to be, this is the foundation. This is what's needed. All right. So let's start with the data access. There's essentially 3 ways of accessing your data. And so, it really depends on the size of your police agency, but here are the 3 main ways to access your data, because data access is critical. If you are from an agency and you are relying on IT or you're relying on someone else to get your data for you, you're missing the boat. You really want to be part of the process that extracts your data so that you know exactly what your data says. You know exactly what's not in your data, and you know exactly what is in your data. So data access is going to be key for you. That's where you want to start. So depending on the size of your agency, you might have an excellent RMS or CAD system, right? Your RMS is where your records are stored, your incidents, your arrests, your FIs, your accidents, that kind of thing. And your CAD are all your 911 calls, your fire calls, your overdoses, things like that, that may or may not turn into a report. So you might have a great, your agency might have just spent a bazillion dollars on a terrific RMS system that allows you to just access it right from the system. I would say that's probably 5% of the United States of America because data systems really are great deposits of information, but they're not always great analytical tools. Then and vendors are starting to catch on to this and starting to make adjustments, but still it's very far and few in between, right? You know what I'm saying? So, but if you are lucky enough to have a robust analytical system to access your data, fantastic, go for it. The second one, if you have a great deposit of information, but you can't seem to get any canned report, like the canned reports in your system just are really not good, or you can't add any analytical notes, then you might consider a direct data access or an open database connection. This is typical of smaller agencies, maybe a couple hundred officers, maybe 200 or 300 officers and under, where you really don't have funding for some really robust RMS system. You kind of have the same system you've used for the last 20 years, or maybe you got a new one, but someone who didn't know anything about analysis bought it for you. And so it doesn't have any analytical tools. So you might need direct data access. And this is I use Microsoft Access. Some people use SQL. You might use, some in the old days, Oracle. You might have some other great system of extracting your data, but whatever the case is, you need access to your data, and open database connection is just one method to get it. And finally, if you belong to a larger agency, what generally happens is you have some big data warehouse, right? Where all your data is kind of put into one spot, and you have these data scientists who ensure that the information in there is accurate so that all the analysts can access that information. So whether you have an excellent RMS or CAD system export, whether you have direct data access, a data warehouse, or even if you're tiny enough of an agency to be manually entering your reports, so I'll call that method number 4, manually entering, if you're small enough, right? The key is you need data access, okay? So, this is a tough area for many analysts because they walk in and they don't want to create waves, but truly you need access to your data in one of these formats. And so if your agency has, crystal reports are okay, there's some other tools out there that you can use, but essentially you want a spot where you can ask proactive questions of your data at all times. All right, so data access is key. And next we have the master, so we're in the systems management right now. So next we have your master databases. You want to have one spot where once you extract your data, it's all stored. So you want to have a place where you can add your analytical notes. You want to have a place where you could say sometime between 0-100 and 0-300 hours, suspect entered the home, and stole X, Y, and Z, a short little synopsis, right? You want to have a spot where you can add analytical notes that may not be extracted from your police report easily, right? You may want to have some kind of database where you can just say, I'm curious, that whole critical thinking thing that we're going to talk about in just a second. So you get access to your data, and then you store it in some kind of master data tables. And if you're not sure how, there's a lot of resources that can help you develop these systems. Analyst is a great resource, and certainly Excellence in Analytics, my company, is a great resource. And there's multiple resources that helps you kind of put this all into one place. Okay. And then of course you want to have your data processes set up. So under the data management umbrella, you want to understand clearly your data processes. One, where the data is collected, right? Where all the data is stored. Second, you want to develop a process of scanning your data. So really saying to yourself, I'm curious about what's happening in my community. Maybe you have some threshold reports, or maybe you're reading your reports every day, kind of just scanning for those patterns and trends. And then something says, oh, this might be something I want to look into. The next stage is really digging in and analyzing that data. The third stage is information dissemination. If it all stays in your head, if it's all on a scrap of paper and you're not delivering it in a timely, accurate way, then it's useless. So you want to have a system of disseminating information. Who has to clear it? What has to be scribed on it to say, please discard in a professional manner? Is it electronic? Is it in person? Like, how are you delivering? How are you disseminating your intel? Right. So that's key. Deciding that ahead of time. And then the next stage of this response is this process is response. So somebody takes your data, takes your analyses, and uses it in response. So a lot of times the analysts are disconnected here. And I encourage you to stay connected, make recommendations on what you think the response should be based on your analysis. And then finally, assess. If when a response is implemented based on the data, right, now you can assess, did it work? So let's say you had hotels and motels that were a problem in the downtown area, and you did an analysis on this one particular one that was causing the most amount of problem. And then you worked with your pop unit or maybe your captain or whoever it might be to implement some change. Now you want to measure, was that strategy, was that effort impactful, right? Did it reduce perception of crime? Did it reduce crime? Did it increase awareness? Like, what was the results of that particular piece, right? So don't forget about assessment. And then it circles back around, because once you have all that happening, you're going to get more data and the cycle is going to continue. Okay. So that's the data process. This is pretty basic stuff for many of you here, but essentially the data management piece of it, don't skip that stage. Don't rely on someone else to give it to you. Ask the questions, know your data inside and out. I want you to write that down. Know my data inside and out, so that when you present some statistics to your managers, your executive staff, your mayor, whoever it might be, your alderman, and they say to you, why is there a 75% increase? You know exactly what that answer is. Know your data inside and out. All right. So that's number one, data management. Any questions on that? Go ahead and plug it in. Are you guys feeling good about your data management processes? Do you feel confident about your information, where you get it, how you get it? Do you have access to it? Or are you like one of those poor analysts who export from the RMS every week and then load and type in and, have little tabs for in Excel for all of their data? Don't do that. No es bueno. Don't do that. How is your data? Oh goodness. So that is manual exporting for you. Yikes. Oh no. Exporting from RMS with tabs. If where we are, unfortunately. Yeah. So Allison, there's lots of different ways. Many of you are manual. Oh my gosh. So there's lots of ways that you can really export it. And if you can export it from your RMS system, it is likely that you can back end connect it. And if you are finding yourself cleaning your data all the time, then we really want to talk about systemic data quality. Many of you are talking about quality, right? Like that you're cleaning the data. When you have dirty data, you're going to have dirty analysis. But just because your department gives you dirty data doesn't mean that your job as the analyst is to clean it. What it means is your job as the analyst is to identify that data quality is an issue and to design strategies with your team, not yourself, with your whole agency, to make improvements in data quality. Sinead has crystal reports. Alana always having to clean the data. Bonnie, export and clean, but you do have that ODBC connection. Your RMS is not too accurate. Yeah, let's see. Yesterday, somebody asked me for some data I had never pulled before, and I didn't even know if it was in our RMS. Yikes. Okay. So Jessica, someone was there to help you. So essentially, you want to be the kind of analyst or supervisor who knows where all your data is in one spot. You're looking at it, you're analyzing it on a regular basis. And so you're not just reacting, you're not just saying, do we have that data, but you know exactly where that data is. And that's a hard place to be. So Jessica, let's get you there. Let's get you there. She's not alone. There's 278 of you, and I bet you at least 220 of you are in the exact same position. So number two, analysis and critical thinking. Here is what we want to be thinking about. Write this down. Analysis and critical thinking. Your job, yeah, Precious says you're not alone, Jessica. You are not alone. I bet you almost everybody here is in the same spot. And that's where we need to make a cultural shift, an industry shift, and demanding that quality data. So number two is the analysis of critical thinking, analysis and critical thinking. Far too often, I see analysts and even supervisors receiving data requests and performing, pulling the data, receiving data requests and doing the data pulls. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is shift your mindset. Those data requests are secondary. Your primary role is analysis and critical thinking, right? Carrie says reading reports daily is huge. Yes, Carrie, you are so right, from Rhode Island, reading those reports every single day. And Carrie was lucky enough to have a system where we connected the data from the back end, and she's able to, if I recall correctly, and she's able to, look at all her data in one spot. So when you are an analyst who is reactive, that means you are receiving a data request and scrambling to go get it, right? We want you to shift your mindset right now and say to yourself, my job is analysis and critical thinking. And when you have this part down, the data requests will be easier and will flow with more confidence, right? So primarily, you want to be thinking about this. How many supervisors are here? If you're a supervisor, go ahead and write in supervisor into the chat so that we know who our supervisors are. Let's see. Yes. We did. We sure did. Yes. Don Reby Fan Club. You're amazing. Awesome. Marcus is a supervisor. Douglas. Yes. I know you, Kurt, Whitney, many of you are supervisors here. Jenny, Nicole. Who else is a supervisor? I know we have a ton of supervisors on here. So we want to encourage our analysts to perform analysis regularly, and that means systems of critical thinking. Hear me, systems of critical thinking. This does not mean getting a request and just going to town. You're going to get data requests, but you must first have analysis and critical thinking systems in place. And here's what it looks like. One, just like Carrie, you're reading your reports every single day. That's how you're going to start to identify, I'm getting curious about this. This is increasing, or I'm starting to read a lot about this. Reading your reports daily is a must. If you belong to an agency with over 200 officers and you're the only analyst, that might be a bit of a challenge. And so you might have to really figure out which reports you're going to have to read every single day, right? Alana says, don't have time to read the reports daily, depending on other requests. I'm the only analyst in my department. Alana, and so this is where I encourage you to really be like shift the thinking and become that proactive, right? I am reading the reports every day. I'm finding the patterns and trends and set up systems to really support the data requests that come in, right? Systems to set those data reports and requests that come in. That's going to be much more effective and efficient use of your time, and probably much more enjoyable as well as you begin to analyze. Yeah. Bonnie, that's you too. Yeah, I know it's a hard thing. I know I'm putting out best case scenario here. My intention really is to inspire you to understand best practices, and really start to think about what shifts can you make in your own agencies. So analysis and critical thinking has to be part of what the supervisors are regularly sharing with their analysts. Asking them, what are you curious about? What are you seeing in the data, right? As an analyst, asking yourself, what am I curious about when I read those reports? Now, again, if you have 2,000 officers, you're not going to be able to read every report, right? It's just not going to happen. That's way too many reports to read. So you might have to qualify and read your robberies or your murders or your rapes, depending on what kind of analyst you are. But if you can, I belong to an agency. We had 189 or something like that officers. So we had about 50 reports, qualifying reports, I would say, a day. And I would read those every single day. And I'd also write my short little summaries on that. So another way to begin your analysis and critical thinking stage is to set up thresholds. Thresholds are systems, again, systems, that's what's key. Systems that you put in place that are going to alert you to something that's up or down that you need to then go study. Now, the alert of up or down is not enough. That's not analysis. The threshold is simply that. It's simply an alert that says, hey, Nicole, hey, Bonnie, go look into this. This is something that we need to study further, right? So create thresholds. And if you don't already know how to create thresholds, we have lots of tools and materials, training that can help you with that. And I'm happy to share them. Julia, as you send emails out afterwards, I'm happy to highlight specifics if folks have specific questions on those. And the final piece is get curious. If you are so busy fulfilling data requests, it's because one, your systems are not properly in place, and two, you're not creating time to get curious about your data. Okay. Looking at your data, just study it, study your data. Look at the last 5 years, 1 year, 2 years, and say, what am I curious about? Am I curious about my hotels? Am I curious about my malls? Am I curious about my repeat offenders? Am I curious about my victims? Am I curious about prostitution, trafficking? Like, what am I curious about? And what can I start digging into? That's the fun part of being an analyst. So I encourage you to really get curious. So let's see what that looks like. Here's an example of a police report. It's kind of blurry and redacted here, so it's a little tricky to see, but they're not that long. I mean, you might have some supplementals and so forth. You can do a pretty quick scan if you have about 50 or less a day. You can do a pretty quick scan and get a gist of what's going on. And that's all really you need to do. So here's an incident report. If you want to scan your CAD calls, go for it. For me, there were thousands. So it was too much to do. So I used threshold analysis to really look at my CAD, but I did read my reports every single day. Here's what a threshold analysis looks like. So a threshold is a simple statistical report that looks at the average of the last 3 to 5 years of data with the same time period. So maybe I'm looking at the last, if I'm a large agency, maybe I'm looking at the last 7 days average compared to the usual range, which is that second column. And then maybe I'm looking last year to this year. So pretend that says 2021 to 2022. And so I'm setting up these thresholds, and I might have 10, 15 of these thresholds that continually run in the background that tell me what to look into, okay, that use Z-score and so forth. So this is what a threshold looks like. And what you'll notice about this threshold is it doesn't just give me numbers. Analysis is not numbers. I repeat, analysis is not numbers. Analysis can start with numbers, but we want to dig into the data and really understand our numbers. So threshold says, hey, something's going on. And then that note section is when the analyst gets curious about that particular increase or decrease. So setting up your thresholds. And getting curious with your data can really be a fun thing. So we have a couple of examples of what you can do, maybe some link analysis. You're like, hey, I'm curious. We've had some booster thefts lately. Who's related to who and where do they live, right? You might start to get curious in this bottom corner here, this link analysis. Maybe you get curious about, some patterns that are going on and you say, hey, I wonder where potential suspects live, work, and play, and apply some of my theories, right? Where do they live, work, and play, and what are some potential target areas? I'm going to get curious about that. Or maybe you use something like ArcGIS or GeoTime plot, where you can plot your crimes, or Google. And so here's an example of GeoTime's tool where you can plot some of your crimes and start to say to yourself, what am I getting curious about? What am I starting to see clusters around? Where are my repeat things and why is that happening? Questions, and more questions. Get curious. That is a key thing you want to do as an analyst and as a supervisor. Okay, we are flying through these. So let me know if you have any questions about what's going on so far, or type in the chat. Is any of this resonating with you? Your systems was number 1, and your analysis and critical thinking was number 2. The skills that analysts and supervisors need to know. For those of you who put those in there as the key areas that you really wanted to learn about, what are you learning? What are you going to shift? What are you going to change? What's coming to you? What's inspiring you right now? Go ahead and plug it on in, and I'll take a peek in just a moment. So keep on plugging away. So yes. Threshold, says Christy. Yes, game changer for Jennifer. When she's reading her reports, she can catch patterns easily. Casey says, yes, this is great, fantastic. Keep on plugging it in. Let me know what's impactful for you. So the third skill, the third thing, and you can kind of have 6 stickies and just visit them every Friday and say, am I looking at my systems? Am I thinking critically? Am I using my technology skills appropriately? So you can kind of just be thinking about these things. So the third is, what technology skills do I need to have, right? What technology skills do I need to have? So I would say basic, keep it simple, Okay. I remember working for an agency and we had SPSS and I'm like, what are we doing? Right. That was a long time ago. Keep it simple, right? So you might use a basic Microsoft package, Microsoft Access, Excel, maybe some mapping. You can use Excel mapping, or you can use ArcGIS, ArcPro, MapInfo, those kind of mapping tools, Google. You can keep it pretty simple, because the reality is if you get so caught up in the tools and technologies, you're going to miss the boat, right? So keep it simple. GeoTime, and here's an example of GeoTime enterprise output here, really trying to make sense of the data. Tools are not analysis. Tools and technologies are what you can use to help you dig deeper into the analysis. So if you, let me ask you, is anyone here relying on tools? Are y'all saying, oh, I was working with a supervisor who was really frustrated. The analyst came to him and said, "Oh yeah, our crime tool is down, so I can't perform the analysis." And he said, "What do you mean you can't perform the analysis? Do it by hand. Figure out a different tool. Use a different methodology to analyze." And so this analyst was debilitated because they had only used this one tool. So spread your wings a little bit. Keep it really simple, and keep the thoughts of critical thinking in mind. All right, so let's see. What do you guys have here? Excel, Visual Studio. You fight with access queries at times, says Marcus. Yes. Bonnie says our databases doesn't work with Microsoft Access. Let's see, just learning access with VBA to create forms that would answer a lot of our questions. Beautiful. Tableau, says Carrie. Yeah, so there's lots of tools out there that you can use. Accurate, LexisNexis. And so the key is to don't get caught up in the tools. Don't have FOMO, right? Like, so when you identify a tool that works well for you, maximize that tool. So here's the GeoTime Enterprise Output tool that begins to help answer some of those curiosity questions of the analyst. The analyst is like, hey, let's make sense of the data. And so they use a tool like GeoTime to begin to make sense of that data. All right, so what do you guys have here? Let's see, Crystal reports Excel, GIS, says Wendy. Marianne says Excel, GIS, Google Maps, QRep for reporting out. Yeah, Excel, Access, Analyst Notebook. Kathleen says, yeah. So I love Access, and probably because I came from an agency under 200, right? When you get to a larger agency, you probably want to have more robust systems set up. So there are agencies out there who are using and learning SQL, which Access is a SQL database, right? It's just kind of, you're learning the back end of it. Tableau is another tool, right? Accurate, Analyst Notebook, Excel, ArcGIS. Yeah, these are tools, right? So the key here to note in technology skills is that it's evolving. Be working on your technology skills every week. Set aside time to learn and grow. If you know that an Access database is really going to accelerate, it's going to automate some processes for you, then set aside 2 hours every week to automate your processes. If you know that your agency pulls data using SQL, then set aside 2 hours every week and get to know SQL inside and out until you can pull exactly what you need to pull, right? Whatever technologies are available to you, you don't have to go and buy big expensive programming. Whatever technologies are available to you, like Excel, Access, mapping, GeoTime, and so forth, you can certainly use. So don't go crazy is what I'm saying. Far too many analysts get caught up and they're like, I can't do analysis because I don't have all the tools that I need. You can still do analysis. You can do analysis with 2 rocks. Okay. You can do analysis on a piece of paper. It involves critical thinking more than it involves technology, right? So technology is secondary. Critical thinking is first. And so once you're able to maximize that critical thinking, or tap into your critical thinking, then you can start to say, what technology skills do I need? So I don't know any analyst who does not use Excel. So if you don't already use Excel, or if you're struggling with it, go take a class. IACA has a course. Our company has a course. Many groups study, Analyst has a course. You can learn Excel. If you don't know how to make a chart, if you don't know how to sort through your data, if you don't know how to do some macros, basic macros in Excel, go take a course and learn that. That's something that you're going to want to do. Do it with your home budget. Excel is great. Power BI, says Nicole. Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of tools, and Power BI is an interface, right? So it's kind of like a tool that you can use to start to look at the data, right? That you can start to look at the data. There's some other spatial analyst tools that you can use. Compstat is one tool, although that's a pretty big learning curve if you're into some of the spatial technologies. The key is improve your technology skills on a regular basis, but don't have FOMO. Don't try to learn everything. You don't need to learn everything. Stick to what you're good at and look for efficiencies. If you are using Excel to do things that Access can do, or if you're using, Word and you really can be using Excel, learn to create efficiencies and work on maximizing your skills on a regular basis. Okay. All right, so number four. Well, actually, before we go there, we just went through 3 skills here. What are the ones that you're just like, my agency doesn't have Access, or my agency doesn't have Excel, or what's the story you're telling yourself right now that we can turn around for you? What are the challenges that you were dealing with those 3 categories, right? Your data management, your critical thinking / analysis, and your technologies. What are the biggest challenges that you're dealing with them that if I answered for you on the spot right now, you feel like it might propel you forward? So go ahead and plug those into the chat. There's many of you here that I know, no question is someone else might be thinking your question too. Yeah. Steve Harmon, here's the good stuff. Yes, that you are interested in actionable reports. Absolutely. So, these are key concepts that we want to be thinking about, because far too often we can get really involved in the day-to-day stuff. We can get way too involved in get the numbers out, right? And the reality is you want to create all of these systems and put these in place on a regular basis. This is strategic planning, right? This is strategic planning for analysis. Are my systems set up? Do my analysts have the opportunity to critically think? If I'm an analyst, am I critically thinking? Am I curious? Do I ask at least 50 questions a day? Be a 2-year-old, ask 50 questions a day, right? Why is this like this? Why is it like that? Create the boundary, the time you need, the space to really ask those questions. Christy says, working with our technology group to pull reports data from RMS because, let's see, what does she say here? Because when I came over, everyone was manually entering data, and I know we can automate. Christy, you're so right. You can definitely automate. I work with hundreds of police departments who still do things manually, or he'll have an Excel sheet with like tabs for months of crime that they're manually entering, that if they, God forbid, left, then their entire agency would be wiped out of systems, right? Because it's all in that one Excel sheet. Don't do it. Don't do it. Make sure you have automated systems. And if you're saying to yourself right now, oh boy, that is me. I am the soul keeper. I have all this and I have no system other than me manually entering. I encourage you to really seek out training, really seek out mentorship, coaching, something that's going to lead you into a path of automation, similar to what Christy Breen experienced. Okay. Nicole says, getting data scientists to build our tools, out our tools and automate our stats so we can focus on analysis. That's brilliant, Nicole. Analysis is not stats. However, because we are the keepers of the data, we are often asked for analytics, right? We're asked for statistics. So yes, we should be able to deliver those statistics, but that's not our sole role. So Nicole, I'm so happy to hear that you're working with data scientists to manage those automated data requests and data statistics so that the analyst can say, I'm curious. What is my data telling me, right? I'm curious, that question. Chris says, adapting to RMS upgrades and learning new features for data extraction. Yeah, Christopher, that's such a challenge, right? So if you have a brand new RMS system in the last 6 to 12 months, or you're getting a brand new RMS system and you're kind of freaking out right now, go ahead and put that in the chat. Adapting to RMS upgrades, understanding not only you, but your officers adapting to that, right? And understanding how to input the data, understanding how to extract the data is really a challenge. And so we need to set up strategies that are going to really ensure the success of that. And that means assessing and evaluating the progress. So if your data quality is rated 70% and you want it to be 90% accurate, 95% accurate, like how do we get there? That needs to be designed, that needs to be measured, that needs to be assessed, right? So Christopher, you have your work cut out for you. Let's see. Yes, Marcus is going live in July. Okay, Marcus, you should know it's going to take a year or two for all of your officers to fully understand the data system and for them to work out the quirks, right? The kinks, the vendors to work all that out. So be patient with your data, but still require it and request it. Some agencies have asked me, hey, I'm getting a new system. Should we dump all of our old data and just start fresh? No. Don't dump all your old data. Historical data is really critical, even if it's dirty and messy. It still gives you some insight. However, when you produce analyses, really qualify your analyses and indicate that that new system has shifted, right? And work with your vendor to incorporate that historical data to map it on into the system so that you have access to it from the main system. I see far too many agencies having two systems, right? So you have an officer in a car who's plugging Dawn Reby when they pull me over occasionally into the system and then into the second system. And that's just a waste of officer time, right? So be sure that it's integrated as best as possible. I actually worked with a Texas community, a very small agency, around 50 police officers. They were switching RMS systems and they would no longer have full access to the old system. So we pulled all that data and dumped it into an access database for them so that they always had access to it, even though that other vendor was tanking, right? So be sure you have historical data. Carrie says, hearing for a while, the whole state is going to a new RMS. Yes, I heard that too about your state, right? You're trying not to think of the nightmare it could be. Well, it can certainly be a challenge, Carrie, to switch to a brand new RMS. And I know you have a bunch of chiefs in the area who are having discussions on what that RMS will be. So I hope that you insert yourself as an analyst, a supervisor, and work with them to say, here's what's needed from the analytical perspective. Jamie says, Yvonne asked, and I am also curious, how do you use Access? So I use Microsoft Access to automate all my reports. The agency so I would say I was with another agency that had about 300 officers. So maybe 75 to 100 reports a day. If that, it was a bigger city. And so I use Access. I pulled the data in from the back end, right, of our RMS system through Microsoft Office. It has a thing called ODBC. It's an open database connection. So you pull that on in, and then I would have all my data in one spot, and I would press a button and kick out all of my reports. So I would have all my opiate reports automated. I would have all my other narcotics reports automated. My weekly reports to my chief automated. My weekly arrests automated. My weekly involvement from people who were arrested or suspected in crime in my city who were from another city, automated. So I would kick that out to the regional groups. All of that was automated so that I could really spend time analyzing the data. And so Access gave me the ability to dig deep into the data and get super curious in one spot, right? Let's see, I have been learning Microsoft Access via YouTube, and it's been very helpful, especially the programming part of it. Yeah, absolutely. And Analyst, if you go, I wonder if there's anyone here who can go to the Analyst, IADLEST website. If not, I'll do it at the very end and plug it in. And there's a 13-part, multi-part series on Microsoft Access, right? So the first 9 parts of it are Microsoft Access, how to connect, how to set up queries, how to use expressions, and so forth. It's 100% free, and you get Analyst credit as well as ISCA course credit for it. So if you're going for certification, which I hope you are, make the industry professionalized, right? Go for certification. That's going to give you some certification points, as well as, of course, teach you how to use Access. All right. Let's see. I use it for data extraction. Yeah, Yvonne, I do. I use it for data extraction, and so you can use SQL management. Crystal is a little tricky because it's static, so you really can't shake up your data as much as I would like you to with a Crystal report. Often that's just a data pull and you get what you get. So Microsoft Access allows you to link in other data sources with a click, right? Crystal is often a challenge because you might have to work with your IT staff to pull in additional data. And so that's why Crystal is good, but it's quite limiting. And if you have Crystal, that means you can definitely have an open database connection with Microsoft Access. You're going to have a read-only file, just like you do with Crystal. So you're not going to mess up your data, and it's not going to make things go slowly or anything like that. But it is an option and an opportunity for you if you're finding that Crystal is not giving you exactly what you need. All right. Carrie says the Access database Don helped me set up allows me to search RMS and CAD system records in seconds. Absolutely. Imagine being able to search how many, let's see, I just lost that. Imagine being able to search how many EDP calls you went on in 24 years in a matter of seconds. That's a great point, Carrie, is really being able to say, I'm curious. Tell me about our alarm calls, and you just plug in alarm calls and up comes all your alarm calls. Or you say, I'm curious about our drunk driving locations. How close are they to maybe a bar or a liquor establishment? And you could just get curious and ask questions. You don't have to go do a big data pull from your RMS system because the data is all in one spot. So I'm saying Access, but you can also do it with SQL or some other data warehouse management tool. It depends on the size of your agency. For me, any agency that's under 300 officers, Access is a great option for you. Okay. So IATList, I'm going to type it in here. ILTL. So IATList is I think you know what, Julia, I think I typed it to you. So if you don't mind. Oh, Carrie actually typed it in. So let's go ahead and highlight that there. Carrie, it's iAtlas.org/training/DDACTS/training. That's the 13-part series. Wendy, let me know if you got that. Wendy. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Yeah, thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Thank you, Julia. I appreciate that. So in that 13-part training series, the first couple are kind of like what DDAX is, right? Data-driven strategies. And then part 3 is connectivity. And then, so it'll tell you how to access it from the back end. And then the others will tell you how to build out queries and reports, automated systems, macros, all that fun stuff. But for those of you who are not using Access and you're using SQL or some other method, there's ways that you can do it in your systems too. I just happen to know Access because that's the one that I used. All right. All right, beautiful. Great. I'm glad you have that, Wendy. All right, Steve, I know you've been waiting for produce actionable reports. Okay, here's the thing, guys. This is your job. This is your job. This is your job. Produce actionable reports. All right. No more stats only. Produce actionable reports. And these are the 4 questions that I want you to ask yourself. 1, is my product impactful? Can someone take this product and do something with it? If the answer is no, then don't let it leave your desk. Okay. Make sure that somebody can take it and do something with it, that it's creating impact. Number 2, is it actionable? Are you like burying the action at the way bottom that no one can really see? Are you giving them this big long thing that they have to read through and try to figure out for themselves? They're not going to read it. Don't do it, right? Make sure that your products are actionable, that right at the very top, you say, hey, here's the area where we need to go. Here's the time where we need to go there, and then provide the analysis. So bluff. Bottom line up front, make sure that you are directing. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You are the master of the data. You are the CEO of crime analysis. You are the best thing they have to data-driven strategies, right? So it's important for you to sharpen your saw, and it's important for you to have confidence, and it's important for you to deliver potential recommendations, right? So make sure that it's actionable. So nobody wants to read and try to like understand what you were thinking. Just tell them. Be simple. Tell them. Tell them what it is. Be proactive. Ensure that you are not just giving reports when everything is said and done. Give reports, do predictions, perform proactive analyses before things get out of hand. So if you see 2 incidents that appear to be related, or 3, or a pattern, or a series, or an increase, or whatever it might be, take the proactive approach. Get curious about your data. Analyze it before someone tells you to. Don't rely on your supervisors, guys. Analyze it before someone tells you to, and decide, okay, how can I invite my officers and detectives to be proactive, right? And the word weekly is here really put time, some kind of time, right? So you can produce actionable reports on a weekly basis. Your agency might need them every 2 weeks or maybe every day. So it really does just depend on the size of your agency, but make sure that there's a time in there, a regular time. So is my product impactful? Is it actionable? Am I being proactive, or am I just summing up what happened last week? If that's you, if you're just summing it up, that's not analysis, right? Analysis is proactive, right? Summing up what happened last week, but also predicting what's going to happen this week. Okay. So here's an example of an actionable report. This is a Compstat example. How many of you do Compstat? Go ahead and plug it in. Let us know. So a lot of times for Compstat, I see folks putting statistics up here, or going through case and telling all the details, and then going to the next case and telling all the details. That's not actionable, right? Instead, your job as an analyst is to define what the problem is, right? Solutions, potential solutions that you've talked about with the command staff, with the patrol staff, whoever it might be, whether or not it was implemented, what the impact was of that particular implementation, and then of course what are next steps, right? What are next steps? So Tamara does Compstat, Precious does Compstat. There's 278 of you here today. I know many more of you do Compstat. Compstat is often a nightmare for analysts. It doesn't have to be a nightmare for you. It can actually be quite fun. And you might be saying to yourself, oh, I can't switch Compstat because it's the way it's always been. Get that thought out of your head. You are the CEO of crime analysis. Your chiefs, your supervisors, your directors are depending on you to bring your best self. Okay, that includes your best analytics. So get curious about your information and start to seek out other ways that might be better than what you're doing right now, right? Or if you're doing the best, then share it with your fellow analysts so that they can do it too. So here's an example. I'll walk through this. Let's say we had some gang fights at the local YMCA. That's our problem. The solution from last Compstat was to gather additional intel, to collaborate with the YMCA. The problem-oriented policing unit would do a warrant sweep in the area, and the school resource officers would reach out to the schools. So that's what you discussed during last Compstat. Then this is presented during the current Compstat, and you might say, hey, what actually happened? Well, all that we said we would do has been implemented. And in addition, traffic patrol beefed up during after school hours on that pathway to the YMCA. Okay, so then the analyst studies the impact of it. So here we have 15 gang fights are down to 10 gang fights. That's good. That's good progress, but it's not enough, right? There's still heavy street talk about upcoming events and upcoming fights. So the next step is perhaps crime analysis will work with POP and SROs to provide additional analyses. We'll outreach to probation parole and then open for discussion. What does this group in Compstat want us to do for next week, right? So this is actionable. This is much more actionable than providing a bunch of statistics that nobody cares about, right? I mean, we care about it, but they may be not very meaningful. So we want to make sure that this is quite actionable. Do y'all see this? Is this what your Compstat looks like? Tamara, Alana, Precious, is this what your Compstat looks like? Let us know. Here's an example of an actionable bulletin. Keep it super simple. One page bulletin, maximum 2 pages. Do not give a book. Nobody cares about research methods in law enforcement policing, right? We care about action. Here it is, get it done, okay? And so you'll see that kind of yellow square up there says special attention. That's the bluff. That's the bottom line up front. Alana says definitely not. Maybe Alana, you were inspired. Are you inspired, Alana? So bluff, bottom line up front, telling them where to go, where to be there, and then talking about that current series. Do not just regurgitate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really say overall what's happening. 9 motor vehicles were targeted this week. They were broken into. This represents an unusually high amount of volume. Here's the particular area. Here are the repeat hits. Here's the cluster. Here's what I'm seeing. Here are people who have returned from probation or parole, whatever it might be. Oh, good, Alana. I'm so glad you're inspired. So make sure that your bulletins, your actionable products, are sending a clear, focused message and not too wordy, just summary and what we should do about it. Margaret says, meant past items are the focus, not current. Yeah, exactly. And we need to shift that. We need to shift that because Compstats I've seen across the globe that they literally regurgitate case by case and people are just bored. And it's just like, we know what the cases are. Let's have these smaller meetings if we need to discuss the cases. But what we want to know as a community, as an agency, is what do we do about these? How can we be proactive, right? Let's see. Short and sweet is my method. Fantastic. Direct and to the point. I like it. You're right. Otherwise, they delete it. Absolutely. Alana says, I can't wait to implement these changes and make my analysis more thorough. Fantastic, Alana. I love it. Here's another example of an actionable report. So how many of you do maps for your police agency? And you're just kind of like, giving them a hotspot map and nothing, no real analysis. So I encourage you, if you are using maps, if you're using GeoTime or ArcGIS or any kind of other mapping products, always put analysis in there, okay? So here's an example of threshold analysis using grids on a map. And you don't have to be this fancy. You can use kernel densities or you can use whatever you have, right? But the key is to identify what is happening in the target zones, right? Camion says, love maps, and so does everyone else in my department. Fantastic. I love that. Give them something to do when they're looking at the maps, right? So this says target area 1, it's driven primarily by a spate of thefts from vehicles in restaurant lots, 1,700 to 2,100 hours. Also several drunk driving crashes lately between 0-100 and 0-300 hours. And now our officers know exactly where to go. And we know exactly what to measure when we're measuring whether or not that effort resulted in impact, right? Margaret says, I wish they would switch Compstat to that philosophy, but tough making others then be held accountable for outcomes. Of course, it's tough, right? But when we think about what analytics is supposed to be used for, this is exactly what it's supposed to be used for. So having these conversations here and outside of here is important. Sharon says the visual is always good. Absolutely. Visual is good, but it has to include analytics with it. All right. So the key here is to remember your purpose. And if you have forgotten, right, this is a question I ask analysts all the time. I say, what do you do? What's your purpose? And they say, oh, I do Compstat, I do bulletins, I do, data statistics. And I'm like, no. What do you do? What's the point of you? What do you do for your agency? And they said, well, I do statistics and I answer data requests. And I'm like, that's not the point of you. Remember your purpose, right? That's the how you get to your purpose. Remember your purpose. Your purpose is to provide actionable reporting so that officers, detectives, command staff, etc., can succeed. Provide actionable reporting so that they can succeed. If you're providing statistics that nobody uses, that goes into the trash, no one's succeeding. If you provide analytics that are a month old, no one's succeeding. If you provide actionable, timely, accurate reporting so that these folks can succeed, then you are becoming and are a data-driven agency. And that's the key. So remember your purpose. So it doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a conversation and roll call that you should be going to. It could be a conversation and roll call that you're having with a captain. Hey, this is going on your shift. You need to know about it. Remember your purpose. Let's see. Marianne says our PD is on a 12-hour shift due to manpower issues. They love maps with analysis, especially the midnight officers. It's impossible for them to keep track of everything, especially between 3 days off. Exactly. Marianne, you got it. So think about it. They're an officer. They're going in for their 12 hours. They're exhausted. They leave, right? They forget about PD stuff for 3 days. They come back and they're kind of like just reactive. Your job as the analyst is to be collecting all this information from their shift, from other shifts, from other sectors, from neighboring communities and so forth, and putting it in this actionable little packet so that when they come back, they know exactly what to do. And it's an information flow. When you are providing purpose, that information flow is going to return to you as well, but it won't return to you if all you do is produce statistics that they never use. So know your purpose. Know your purpose. All right, number 5, relationship building. This is something that analysts, oh my gosh, they really struggle with. Are you an analyst who struggles with relationship building? Do you find that you are constantly in your office with your doors locked so that nobody bothers you so that you can read your reports and perform analysis or clean your data, right? If you are antisocial as an analyst, you are not creating buy-in. Building relationships is a key success tool for you. I want to repeat that. Building relationships is a key success tool for you. If you don't have a relationship with your detectives, if you don't have a relationship with your chief, if you don't have a relationship with your officers, then they're not going to take your products as they should, right? And so intentionally building these relationships is key. This has to be something that you have a little sticky and say, did I do this week? Did I intentionally build internal and external relationships this week? Trust me, this is key, not only for yourself, for your sanity, but so that you can continue that cycle. Remember that cycle that we talked about, data collection, all the way to feedback and assessment, right? So you want to be able to continue the cycle. The cycle is going to stop at you giving the data. if you don't have a relationship. So you got to build the buy-in. You got to go on the ride-alongs. You got to go to roll call. You got to go and connect with people with more than just work sometimes, right? Because we are humans. We are humans. So you got to have a strategy that you're intentionally building relationships. The same goes for people outside of your agency, connecting with other analysts. Are you going to the regional analyst network events? Are you showing up to TextLean, to MACA, to the different regional groups? Are you part of ICA? Are you going to the conferences and meeting people? Are you building the relationships, right? That is really key. So let's talk about that a little bit. Building relationships, build trust, which builds buy-in. Jennifer says she goes to her patrol briefing roll call to check in with officers and pass along information, and they seem to appreciate it. Yes, they do. I remember I was working at this agency for like 4 years, and I went down to roll call, and the captain was like, "Oh, we have a new guest here today. Who are you?" And I'm like, "What the heck? I've been working here for 4 years, and you're saying, who are you? Like, that's crazy." Would that happen to you? Would that happen to you? And my fail was not getting my butt down to roll call at least 3 times a week, right? So you gotta get in front of the officers so that they trust you, so that you build these relationships, okay? Marcus says, everybody knows me by name. That's fantastic. And if you're struggling with this, candy, chocolate always helps. If you're struggling with this, if you sit next to the chief's office or you sit in narcotics like I did, I sat in narcotics so nobody would come near me, right? Then I really had to make an intentional effort to get out of the narcotics division, to walk around, to meet people, to know, when someone's getting married, to know when someone's passing, their family members passing away, to be human, to connect. You're not a computer. And I know that you're busy. I know that you're busy. Your life will be much more enjoyable when you feel like you're part of a unit, when you feel like you're part of a network, but you've got to make the effort to get there. So building relationships builds trust and builds buy-in. This goes for any profession. This goes for your families. This goes for your friends. Be intentional. Build those relationships. For new analysts, it has been tough as our stations have been remote. Oh gosh, yes, since 2019. Yes, how challenging is that? It absolutely is. And so, one thing that you can do, Margaret, and many of you can also do in your building relationship efforts, is print out something like this. I mean, it could be this simple. This is coffee dates, right? In January, 1 a week. There's 4 right there, 1 a week. Who can I connect with? Who can I have coffee with? I mean, go get some Starbucks cards. I mean, just well, whatever, just Dunkin's, whatever you like, right? If you don't like coffee, maybe you bake muffins, whatever you do, right? For maybe a week or a month, whatever works for you. It is important for you to connect with people. Coffee dates, walks, go walking during lunch, get away from your desk, go walking during lunch and build relationships. Okay. Kristen says, worked as an intel analyst from Maryland DOC and now work for New Hampshire Attorney General's office as a paralegal, trying to convince them they need an analyst to assist in their investigations. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Kristen, reach out to me directly because I have some connections in the New Hampshire area. I live in Nashua, New Hampshire, and I worked there for 9 years, so almost. So feel free to reach out to me directly and we can kind of get them talking to each other. I have some good connections up there. All right. Okay, beautiful. So, something as simple as this, there's almost 300 of you on this call. I'm sure there's several hundred of you listening to the replay at some point. How often do you get out of your office? And is it only to deliver a report? Right? Do you know anything about the people around you? We are humans. Do you know anything about the people around you? Do you know if your neighbor, if his wife just passed away or is sick? Do you know if they got COVID recently? Are you supporting people in a way that builds trust? And if you're working on this, if you're a supervisor and you're trying to figure all this out, there's a great book by Daniel Coyle called Culture Code. It's a wonderful book that helps you create these collision opportunities to really get your people connected. So Culture Code is a really great book to do that. All right. Allison says, I rarely leave my office. The team I work with is in and out constantly, and I don't necessarily know when they are in and out. Allison, then your job is going to be a little trickier. So when I started an agency, here's what I do. I get a list of all of the officers, right? I get a list of all of the other civilian staff as well, right? And I just kind of jot down what I know about them, what I don't know about them. And if it's blank, if all of them are blank, right? Maybe in an Excel sheet and all of them are blank, then I say to myself, Dawn, get out there, make a phone call, get to know them, get to roll call, read their tags, know somebody. If it's not an officer, if it's, something, maybe billing staff member, they're important too. Get to know your staff, get to know your HR, get to know your people, and make a real effort to do that. Make a real effort to do that. Let's see. Oh, Christopher, you have to balance roles. Yeah, exactly. There's, the reality is you're in public sector. So you probably you're hired to do one job and you're doing the job of 50 people, right? At least 5. And so we are often juggling a lot and we often believe we don't have time for building relationships. But I'm telling you, building relationships will bring you better success in data-driven strategies. Make it, just get out there and make it happen. 4 a week. I'm sorry, 1 a week, 4 a month is not that hard. Just say, hey, my goal at the end of this year by December 2031 is to know all 100 of my officers, right? Know at least, their favorite color or their favorite food or whatever it is. Just get to know them, right? Carrie says, I participate as a role player in reality-based training every year during in-service, so I get a chance to see all of the officers. Carrie, that's wonderful. I love that you do that. I remember I worked for an agency and I was a role player in reality-based training, a SWAT training, and I was always the victim. And I was always like the nurse that had cheated on my husband and he came back to murder me and they had to build the scene around that, right? And I was like, how come I'm not the analyst who's feeding you intel during all of this, right? So that's funny. Let's see. So Allison says, how do you do that? Can we connect it offline? Yeah, Allison. So one way to really do that is to ask, I'd like to be part of the intel operations. I'd like to be part of the SWAT investigations or the training as an intel provider, as a crime analysis provider of that, not the nurse. Don't be the nurse. All right, let's see. It is generally a given that once you help someone else look good to their bosses, they will come by and see you all the time. Ding, ding, ding. You got it. You got it. Exactly. So you just need that one success, that one avatar. Yeah. I'm glad you think so, Steve. I'm glad you think that's funny. It is. It really, really is. And trust me, relationship, you'll live a happier life. You'll enjoy your job more if you feel connected to the people around you. So get to know them. Okay, we're going to move on. Number 6, public speaking, building confidence around speaking. If you are not confident in your start with your systems, right? Get confident there. And then get confident in your own role as the CEO of crime analysis. You are excellent if you show up as your best self. Okay. Part of showing up as your best self is working on this public speaking skill. So be able to have a conversation in front of a group or, one-on-one. That's also considered public speaking. So public speaking is something we need because we need to be able to say, hey, here are the stats. Here's what I gathered from my curiosity exploration, from my analysis. Here's what I think we should do and why, certainly with respect, right, as you're offering that out. Let's see. Peanut butter cups are a huge hit for Christy. Yes, yes. Marcus, you need to work on that. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. So building confidence around your speaking, if this is not a point, if you're timid, if you don't feel like you can talk in front of people, you want to really work on this. This is something that you want to really work on. You can go to Toastmasters. You can, work with a coach. We at Excellence in Analytics, we have our coaches help folks with all of this, our supervisor and analyst coaches. So you can do that. All right. And so I'm going to just share with you a couple more things. A lot of analysts will fear messing up. What if I mess up? What if I don't say the right thing? I don't know anything special. Do you think that about yourself? If you're like, I don't really know what I'm talking about. What if my audience doesn't listen to me? What if they don't take me seriously? What if I'm not a good speaker? And this is one fear that I get from a lot of analysts. They're like, who am I to teach others? You are perfection if you show up as your best self. You are the closest thing they have to knowing their data inside and out. You are of value. And if you don't already know that, then go look in the mirror and say, I am of value. Okay. You are not just warming a seat. Your role is critical. And as we move into an era of data-driven strategies, I'm telling you, I go all over the globe to implement data-driven strategies. Chiefs want this. They need you. Officers need you. You are of value. So show up as your best self. And if confidence is something you need to work on, if public speaking is something you need to work on, then get it. Go do it. And don't wait for your PD to pay for you. Don't wait for your PD to tell you. You need transferable skills, right? Or you can build yourself, and you should always regularly be thinking about how can I grow and how can I develop, right? Let's see, a lot of those things, it's a struggle. Yeah. Why you as an analyst are critical. You are the only one in the department that reads all and knows what everyone else is doing. You are the link between everyone else. You got it. You got it. That's exactly right. You are the link. You are they rely on you to pull this information, to do the best that you can do, to be so confident in your numbers. So if you're not that person right now, think about these skills that we're talking about and where you need to fill the gaps so that you can show up, so that if your director or your chief says, hey, what do I need to know? You're on it and you're confident on it. So Allison agrees with Marianne. I do not have confidence in this at all, despite being an analyst for 2 years. So that's okay, Allison. So that's okay. You've identified a gap and now it's up to you to work on it. And that's okay. Thanks. Steve is my comedian. So thank you, Steve, for that. I appreciate that. And so a lot of analysts are simply not confident, and that's okay. You've identified a gap area, and this is something to work on. And so, if you go to donreby.podia.com, if someone wants to plug that into the chat, there's a building confidence link in there that you can click on. There's actually quite a bit of links for analysts, and building confidence is one of them because I know personally how important it is to have confidence. Okay. So this public speaking video here, thank you, Julia, I appreciate that. So there's lots of tools on that donreby.podia.com, and one of them is confidence if you don't already have it. There's this public speaking video that I want to share with you. We're not going to have enough time to share it, so I'm going to ask Julia to go ahead and plug it in to, or maybe I can figure out how to plug it in. No, Julia, you might have to plug it in to the chat there. It's a 5-minute video on how valuable you really are as an analyst, and public speaking is just one of the key things that you can do to represent a quality industry, to represent a quality self. Okay. And so the video really goes over these key concepts here. If you're a video learner, then go ahead and I'll plug it in if Julia doesn't have it there easily available. That's okay. That's okay. If you don't have the link, I'll plug it in later on. But basically what the video is saying is I interviewed a speaking coach, a public speaking coach who specifically works with public sector folks to gain confidence, right? And so these were her messages. Deliver your message with excellence, right? Knowing that you belong, that you are the lifeblood. You are it. You are the person who reads the data. The chief is not reading every single report. They're not analyzing every single report unless they're a tiny agency, right? And so deliver your message with excellence by knowing that you belong, that you are the lifeblood. When you realize that you are the lifeblood, when you accept your role as CEO of crime analysis, regardless of your status there, even if you're a 1-year analyst, you are the CEO of crime analysis. When you accept that as your role, you will do everything you can to progress into a role of excellence. Okay. So number one, recognizing that you are the lifeblood. What you have to say is going to change a lot of lives. What you have to say is important. So know it inside and out. Develop the systems that we've talked about and know it inside and out. What you have to say is going to shift the direction of strategies of your agency. And it should, because if your agency is a data-driven agency, then they're going to want to use the information that you're providing to drive their decisions. Okay. It doesn't matter who's in the room. It matters what value you provide. And I'm going to repeat that. It doesn't matter who's in the room. It matters what value you provide. So forget about if it's the mayor, forget about if it's the alderman, if it's the chief, if it's someone who intimidates you. The fact of the matter is, The value that you provide is what they need. Okay. The value that you provide is what they need. You are of value. Your analytics is of value. Do it well. Become the CEO of crime analysis. The important people, like those quote unquote important people, like the chiefs and the executives, they have stressors of their own. They don't want to deal with your stress. Okay. So they have stressors of their own. Be a solutions finder. All right. So instead of always finding things that are wrong, I mean, yeah, identify the gaps, identify the solutions. I had this captain once who was just like, Dawn, you're a solution finder, and I'm going to listen to what you have to say, because this one over here tells me all about the problems and then gives me no solutions or like a teeny solution. And he said, it's the 80-20 rule. That person gives me 80% of the time problems and a little teeny percent of the time solutions. And he said, instead, be the solution finder. Tell me about the problem. Hey, we have a data quality problem, and here are 3 major issues. And then give me the solutions. Okay. So you can come up with these solutions. Let's say that's the case. Let's say we have a data quality issue. And I say, hey, chief, we have a data quality issue. It's resulting in bad analytics. The city is down our backs. The officers are not getting quality analysis, and I'm spending all my time cleaning data rather than analyzing it. Done. Now here's the solution. We need to implement more stringent responsibility in the report review process. Number 1. Number 2, I'm going to work with the vendor to ensure that there's some drop-down menus. Number 3, I'm going to train in the academy, as well as once a year, all of our officers will understand the why of analytics, not data, the why of analytics. That's another solution. So bing, bang, boom, come up with all these solutions. Be a solution finder, identify the gaps and identify solutions, because they have stresses of their own. And when you're showing up with solutions, when you're showing up as your best self, when you're showing up in excellence, those folks are going to recognize that. All right. And recognize, the video will share with you, you are never messing up. If you don't know the answer to something, you can simply say, I don't know the answer to that, but let me write that down and I'm going to find that. Does later on today work for you? That's a great statement to say, right? So I've had someone say, try to trick me and flip me up. And they'll say, hey, Dawn, why are commercial burglaries on this day up? And I'm like, I don't flip it. No, I don't have that data right in front of me. So I will say to them, yeah, that's a great question. What day are you looking for? And I'll write it down and I'll say, hey, is an email or a phone call by 4 o'clock today okay with you to follow up with that question? And that response really helps you're never messing up. Whatever you don't say, they didn't know you were going to say it, right? So if you plan something and you didn't say it, it's fine. It's fine, right? And so just take notes and follow up. Right. And learning how to recognize that learning how to communicate is a journey. You're not going to communicate, like if you're right now struggling with this, tomorrow you're not going to be an expert. Right. But the commitment to being better and better incrementally and taking action around that commitment is what's key. So learning that communicating is a journey and it's going to take real intentional effort. Okay. So here's some other things that we can think about. Developing your strengths. So every supervisor and analyst, you want to be thinking about developing your strengths, right? So put together a professional development roadmap. If you don't know what that is, go to that dawnreby.podia.com and there's one in there for you, that professional development roadmap. I think it's in the analyst bundle package, right? So a roadmap is basically, how you want to develop yourself, how you want to improve, right? What's my professional development plan versus just kind of picking things out of the sky to go to, right? Learn something every day. Just get a journal if you need to, open it up and say, what did I learn today? And if nothing pops into your head, then go find something to learn. Learn every day. Develop your leadership. Whether or not you are a supervisor, you are still the CEO of crime analysis. And if you can't get that message into your heart right now, then develop your leadership skills. You don't have to hold a title to be a leader. Okay. If you are a leader and you have not had leadership training, get yourself some leadership training. It is critical to your agency, to your department, and to your people, and quite honestly, to yourself. Get some mentors, find people in the field who you admire and want to be like, and ask them, how can I help you? And see how you can really support them so that they can mentor you, right? Because they're busy. Proximity principle, get yourself around people who are doing the things that you want to do. So if you know that you don't know squat about mapping, but that's the next stage of your agency, then sit with a police agency who's really good at mapping and ask them lots of questions and offer something in return. Don't just take, right? And finally, get certified. If a lot of analysts and supervisors are afraid to get certified, they're afraid they don't qualify, whether it's CLIA certification through the ISCA or another certification that you desire, professionalize yourself. The more you learn, the more you grow, the more the industry grows as a total. So get certified. So constantly develop your strengths. I am a cell site analyst. What certification? I don't. So tell me what a cell site analyst does. Is that cell tower? Is that like a real-time event center? What does a cell site analyst do? What's your major role? That would help me answer that question better. All right. So go ahead and throw that into the chat. And I'll let you know what I think. But overall, there's IACA has a great certification. Geofencing, a geofencing certification. I'm not sure about the geofencing. So if you're an Intel analyst, there's Intel certification. If you're a crime analyst, overall analyst, I definitely would recommend CLIA certification through ISCA. There's a couple of others called creating maps based on times. Okay, yeah. So that could certainly be the IACA certification as well, the International Association of Crime Analysts certification as well. You might, because you're doing maps and times, locations. Yeah. So that kind of certification, I think, would be helpful for you. Hope that helps. So to kind of wrap up what we've talked about today, don't get the data only when asked to do a data request. Instead, spend time creating quality systems. Don't send out statistics with unknown impact. Really analyze data every day and create the impact that you desire. Don't try to learn every single technology. Just use quality technologies to enhance the analytics, not be the analytics, right? Stay in your office because you're busy. Don't do that. Don't stay in your office because you're busy. Instead, regularly build quality relationships, and don't hide in the back praying that they don't call on you during meetings. Instead, speak with intelligence and with poise. All right. Jessica says, any leadership training recommendations? Yeah, actually, Jessica, I run a leadership program. It's called RG Leadership. It's right in that donreby.podia.com. It's a 12-month leadership program for supervisors or folks who want to be supervisors. It's a commitment. It's one-on-one coaching as well as a module system around leadership and all the tenets of leadership that you would need. Thank you, Julia. Yes, if you click on that and you go down to the leadership, RG Leadership is the one, and that's a 12-month program and you can dig into it, or you can reach out to me directly, Jessica, and I can get you some information on that. Another great leadership program, John Maxwell has a great leadership program as well. So there's a couple, your city might have a leadership program. But what we did in our leadership program is we really created templates and tools and materials for our supervisors so that they could really have a network of supervisors together, or leaders if you don't have that supervisor title, as well as the coaching for the entire year. And we build in leadership of self. Taking care of yourself as a key component of it. All right, so hopefully that's helpful for you, Jessica. I'd love to talk to you if you're interested in that. For those of you who don't already know, we have a best-selling book, Get the Tools You Need to Become the Top Law Enforcement Analyst and Be Incredibly Successful and Happy Every Step of the Way. So there's a little video in here too, and we can shoot this out in an email, or you can go to excellenceinanalytics.com/book, and you can check out Bigger Than Data book, which really is about this marketability of yourself and creating this joyous analytical life, right? We have a book for supervisors coming out pretty soon. Hopefully it'll be out within the next 6 months, and it is specifically for supervisors who are building analytical function. But anyone in the leadership program gets full access to all of it. So you can go ahead and dig into that. And we also have a YouTube page. It's called Excellence in Analytics. And that's a community of folks or it's a community, right, where we put all of our leadership training. So there you can also go. It's free, Jessica. We have a whole section on leadership. And we also have a whole section on work-life harmony, as well as analytics. And I just came back from building analytical capacity in Saudi Arabia. So there's a bunch of stuff on what it's really like to be in Saudi Arabia, which is pretty cool as well. All right. And here's just a bunch of faces of folks who are in some of our RG programs. We have RG for analysts, right? That teaches them Excel access and gives them coaching and so forth around being an analyst. And then we have RG leaders as well. And so that's that leadership program that I shared with you. So I should probably update this because we have a lot more folks in the program, but certainly these are the loving faces of folks who have completely transitioned and changed their lives into work-life harmony in law enforcement analytics. So ultimately, I want to share with you, hopefully this was of value to you. And, the key message here is be the CEO of crime analysis and certainly be the CEO of your life. Don't wait for an agency to tell you what to grow, how to develop. Know that you are the lifeblood. You are the CEO of your life, and make it joyous. You only have one to live. Make it joyous. Build in things that are going to bring you happiness and joy. And sitting in an office all day feeling miserable about numbers is not going to do that for you. Step out of that zone there, deliver your best self to your agency, and create your life by design. Create your life by design. So for those, we have a few minutes left, and I want to open it up, and I'm going to stop my share here so I can see all of you. Or I guess I just see me in a couple of other screens here. So go ahead, we'll open it up. Let me know, what questions do you have? What came to you? What resonated with you that you need to either work on or kind of know a little bit more about, that we can work through right here, right now in this coaching environment? Great. Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Precious. Thank you, all of you who are popping on here. Jason, Tracy. All right, let's see. So, I'm going to wait for you to throw in some questions if you have any, but the 6 things that analysts really need to know, and if you were taking notes, it really needs systems, build relationships, and show up as your best self. Systems, build relationships, show up as your best self, gather some of the technologies that you might need. Certainly, work with GeoTime if that's a group that you decide you want to work with to build out some of your systems. But in the end, keep it simple. Keep it joyous, keep it fulfilled. You're welcome, Montana. I don't know, Candace. So Candace asks, will a copy of the presentation be available? Julia, maybe you can unmute yourself and just share the answer to that?
Yeah, of course. So the presentation, it was recorded. Once we're done today, you should receive an email later on, and that'll have the link to the recording, as well as a survey and any other items that were mentioned today as well. So yes, you will get the recording.
Okay, so we have a question here. Let's see, not a new analyst, but I will say this was a great webinar. Let's see, and very beneficial for new. Had I known all this when I started, it would have saved you some trial and error time. Yeah, exactly. These are things I wish I would have known as well. And I have to say, I've worked with hundreds of police agencies, hundreds of analysts, hundreds of chiefs, and I'm telling you, these are the things that are important. Showing up as your best self, whatever that means for you. If you need better work-life harmony, then find that. You can reach out to me directly. We can work on it. You are most welcome, Bonnie. I'm so glad that you have directions to help with your new analysts. This is the thing. We are an analytical community. And so together as an industry, we are stronger when we are certified, when we are professionalized, when we are showing up as our best selves. So I encourage you to really, jump into your own greatest self. Nicole says Baltimore County has several statistical analyst positions available. Oh, good plug. All right, great. To their real-time event center. We aspire to all the things Don talked about today, and there's a link in there for some jobs. And so here's the thing. I've worked with Nicole for about a year through IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police Crytech program, where we provided some technical training and some support around building analytical capacity for that. And I will say Nicole is a wonderful director who really wants to help her analysts rise into leadership and wants them to own their roles. And so she, has put the link in there about her job. So go ahead and plug into that if you'd like. You left Maryland in December. Maybe you'll be back. Maybe you'll be back. All right. So certainly I'm going to plug in my email here so that in case anyone needs to reach out to me directly, you can feel free to do that. I might just be sending it to Julia, hold on one second. There you go. All right. So Dawn at excellenceinalytics.com. Yes, Deborah, ILEA is also a great source. They also do certification for Intel analysts. So that is a great source. Thank you for sharing that. And so if you need specific direction, if you're looking for something a little bit more, feel free to reach out to me directly. If you want to dabble around at dawnreby.podia.com, we have some meditations in there, some holistic wellness stuff for law enforcement, life by design. Some of it's at cost, some of it's free. So poke around, see what it is that you need, and get in touch. Laura, your chief is from Baltimore County. Yeah, exactly. So I think that wraps up time here today, but certainly my door is open, and I want to thank GeoTime for their tools that they provide to the law enforcement analytical community, very wonderful tools that they provide, and also for the opportunity to share all of this with you. I don't often partner with vendors in this way, and I was certainly happy to partner with GeoTime because they really do have the heart of the analysts and the police agency in mind when they're corralling together different leaders like myself to present and to share. And so I thank GeoTime for the opportunity to do this with all of you. You're welcome, Daniela. It was wonderful. I'm so glad you took away some crucial advice. So live well, live your best self, show up as your best self, rely on yourself to show up as your best self, and take those 6 key concepts and build them in to your every single day. So Julia, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you to let you wrap up here today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dawn. That was fantastic. And it's really great from my end too. We do webinars all the time, but it's not often that we get to see that level of interaction in the chat between the presenter and also the attendees. So that was great. Thank you so much for that. And a really big thank you to all of our attendees as well for your participation, your really insightful questions throughout, and also interacting with other attendees as well and trying to help them out. I hope you all walk away from this webinar feeling a bit more confident and better equipped in your role. I'm not an analyst, but I sure did. So
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Julia.
So with that, we are going to go ahead and wrap things up. Just again, you will receive the recording today and your certificate of attendance, and also the post-webinar survey so you can provide us with some feedback. That survey should pop up once I close the webinar room. If it doesn't, you'll get an email with that as well, but please fill that out. Let us know how we did today and anything else you'd like to hear in the future. So I think we're going to go ahead and end things off over here. Again, thank you so much, Dawn, for that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today and spending some time. I look forward to seeing you all at some of our upcoming webinars, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate you.